back to another episode of the Outer Rim Realm with myself, the Outlaw Adam Neeson, joined as always by the Jedi Knight Danny Brown. Danny, my friend, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I've mentioned it before already, but it's getting warmer and I'm living for it. Talking about things that are getting warmer, I've been using hot honey a lot in food. Like I've
Hmm.
really taken to like adding hot honey to stuff, and I've even started like making my own hot honey, like adding different sort of like chili pastes to honey to try the different like flavors and smokiness and that sort of thing. So as always, we like to talk about food, but today I'm just talking about something that I like to add to my food, and hot honey is where it's at. If you haven't tried hot honey yet, highly recommend. Have you tried hot honey? Are you a hot honey man?
I do love hot honey, but here's the thing. Hot honey, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but we'll ask our guest. But
Hmm.
there seems to be every so often there's a phase where something joins every food group. Hot honey at the minute is on everything. Before
Yeah.
that, Cajun seasoning. Don't know
Mm-hmm.
why. But yes, I am a big enjoyer of hot honey, especially on a pizza.
Oh, yes, yes. Drizzle the hot honey over a pizza. Hell yeah.
But let's ask your guest. All the way from the United States, the home of hot honey, I think, is a gentleman who has worked in so many different genres. Of course, he's here today to talk to us about playing Marrok, the Inquisitor in the Ahsoka series, but he has worked with such legends as Christopher Nolan, Zack Snyder, Lana Wachowski, Edgar Wright, and of course, most importantly to our fiancé, Danny,
Mm.
he was in Twilight. Uh, Joining us today is stunt performer and actor Paul Darnell. Paul, how are you, sir?
Hi guys, thank you very much for having me on. I'm doing great. And hot honey, that's so funny you mentioned that. I was just talking, we're on spring break and we're traveling up the coast of California. And that's one thing my son noticed. He said, "What's up with hot honey right now? It's everywhere."
Hmm.
And it is everywhere. Like we're looking at all the restaurants at hot honey as something to put on, and the grocery stores are just promoting hot honey. Yeah, what's up with hot honey right now? Why is it making a trend?
It's
Um,
just delicious. That's what the trend
There you
is.
go.
It's
You can
just
put it on.
absolutely
I've just like on pizza, right? But what else would you put hot honey on?
chicken wings,
Ah,
ribs. The dish I made was chicken and feta and chickpeas and baby tomatoes, and you put all that in a baking dish and you drizzle your hot honey over a good amount of it. Put it in the oven for about 25 minutes, take out, mix it all through, add some pasta. Delicious.
pasta too. Wow.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
It was a fantastic meal.
I was thinking more chocolate.
Ooh,
I think it could work. I think that could work. A little chili chocolate, but throw in the honey as well. It
Mm.
also sounds like, not very healthy,
Oh
but
no, absolutely not. No.
did you have any hot honey, Paul, when you were doing your
no, we
travels?
didn't. We didn't have any. We just saw it popping up, and that was just one of the things that we had noticed too as we were traveling was just the hot honey. But we saw it at a pizza shop that we
Yeah.
went to.
And
Yeah.
are you going to try some now? Have we convinced you to join the hot honey side?
So is hot honey just honey with like cayenne
Mm.
Yeah,
in
just
it, or do they or peppers or?
it's sort of so the one that I made for the dish was like a hibisa chili paste, and then you just add the honey to it and kind of
Oh,
mix it all through. So it had like a real nice, not like too hot flavor, but a bit of like a sweet smokiness. And then you've got the sweet of the honey through it as well. And it was just like real
yeah.
good.
I'm,
Hmm.
I'm curious what that would be like on pasta for some
Yeah.
reason. I think
Oh,
that would be interesting.
really good on pasta. The dish. So the first time we made that dish, we did it with salmon, and it was lovely. The honey and chili through the salmon was beautiful. And then I was like, I'm going to try it with chicken next, and it was also very good chicken. But yeah, in a pasta dish, it's a winner. Like
Right on.
so,
Sorry to
yeah.
our listeners
That's
if you're hungry.
yeah. This is it.
Yeah.
We're gonna start an outer rim rambling like cooking show on the side next.
You sound like you could. You could.
So, Paul, before getting to play Maruk and be involved in Ahsoka and The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, were you a Star Wars fan?
I got introduced to Star Wars uh, through my cousins. I grew up in Virginia, and they were older than me, and they had gone and seen Star Wars in the theaters. So they had all the VHS tapes, and I'd watch all these movies at my cousin's house because I was a little younger. My parents were more restrictive of movies, so I got to watch horror movies and things like that. I couldn't watch in my house, but they were also really big into Star Wars. So I remember watching it with them, but I think I was young when I first saw it. So the one thing that stuck out to me were the Ewoks, and I don't know why I connected with them, and I think it was just at that time of being a young boy and liking to build forts, and I was so amazed by the tree forts that they built and the bridges. I don't know. That's the one thing that stuck out to me through that. But because my parents were more into like Indiana Jones, what we had at our house and what we were watching a lot, and so I wasn't like I never had it coming in through my house except for when I visit my cousin. So watching all the films, the one character also that stood out to me was Boba Fett, and I really connected with him too. I don't know, is that my background, is in movement. I really like movement and just characters that are unique in that sense. And the next one that stood out to me was Darth Maul. When I saw him, that was huge because he was a stunt performer that turned into an actor that was able to play this character. And that kind of got me into Star Wars of like, oh, I like this action here of what they're doing and bringing this sort of unknown of who is this guy and what can he do? But he was doing flips and all these cool tricks. So that's what got me into Star Wars. But I wasn't a huge fan before. I didn't know much about it. I just didn't know much about it until I got started working on The Mandalorian, and then I just dove deep and just went in.
Yeah. Would you kind of learn them? As you say, you're interested more so probably in the movement, and you like that Ray Park was stuntman turned performer and brought this kinetic energy to the saga, and it's something that from that point, from the Phantom Menace, it's just been like it just seems to get better and better as you go across the different movies and the TV shows. Like some of the best fighting I think we've seen in Star Wars is in The Acolyte. The combat, the lightsaber combat in that show is incredible. But you then get to bring your movement to that. You get to play lightsabers. You get to actually take part of that. What was that like for you? What was the initial call to come and work on Star Wars? You said there you started with Mandalorian. So what was the initial call, and then how did you end up getting to be Marrok?
My journey started because my friend was coordinating the TV show Mandalorian, and I'd worked with him on Man of Steel, a Superman movie with Henry Cavill. I was doubling Henry Cavill in the film. We did that run. That was like a year-long project. And then after that, you kind of go your different ways of everybody does different projects. And then he had called me up and said, hey, I got this new show I'm going to do. It's something in Star Wars. It might be like a Boba Fett. Like I guess he was trying to be vague about it too because he couldn't really talk too much about it. And he's like, oh, it's going to be right next to your house too if you want to come out and try it. Oh, this sounds sweet. Yes, I do. So he was a coordinator. He had me come in to try to be a stormtrooper, and unfortunately, I was too tall to fit into the stormtrooper outfit. They had a certain mark. Yeah, I think there was a 5'9", 5'10" was the cutoff that they would allow you to be in it. They want everybody uniform. So I didn't get that, but they kind of put my name in the system, I guess you could say, of people they could use, and so they brought me back just to play, I don't know, just different background stunt performers that would just die, and so I kind of got in with that and just started coming in when they need me, filling for different things. I put on different droid suits and stuff. And then also I ended up doubling Cobb Vanth as well, Timothy Oliphant, and they would just kind of use me for random spots. And then as the seasons progressed, I worn some other costumes, so they knew they could fit me, so they would put me into those. I was like one of the Death Troopers, the tall black troopers with Moff Gideon. Toward the end of season 1, I was in that, so I could fit into one of those. And it just became like being tall and skinny would allow me to fit into these costumes, and then they would start putting me in these different spots. So I got very lucky in that sense, and it progressed that way. Then when Book of Boba Fett came along, they were doing that because again, they're shooting all of these in the same studio. So this is great. I can bike to work. This is wonderful. If they need anything, call me. I'll be right there. It's not a big deal for me to get there. And so on Book of Boba Fett, they had these Nightwind assassins that were more like sort of parkour based, and they knew I do parkour. So this is now it switched to a different coordinator that I had never worked for before. He was directing the stunts, JJ Dashnell. And he had got my name through the productions of me working on Mando 1 and Mando Season 2 and said, okay, let's try this Paul guy out. And it kind of like was on the spot. I had to show him what I could do in the movement. And he's like, all right, yeah, I think this guy will work. And so they put me in as the group, me and my buddy, Albert Vallardes, who is also doubled Henry Cavill on Superman and Batman versus Superman. he and I were some of the last two Night One Assassins that kind of get away and do like a rooftop sort of chase together because of our parkour background. And so I did that, got to do a little performing, a little acting for Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and that was a huge thing for me. I'd always done physical stuff, and I got to throw out some lines, and that was very exciting for me. Nervous to see how it worked because I am a physical performer, not so much vocal actor. Like I don't put a lot of attention into that part of it, and I really love just the physical side of just telling my story through movement. I think that's why I was connecting these characters before, and that's where I put a lot of my time and energy into. So, but that was a fun one to play as well. And then, let's see, I think we did Mando season 3. Got to play another different characters on that. Plays there's more Mandos, like a Shriek Hawk Mando was more of a recurring role in that, but I played a lot of different ones. It's really hard for me. I really need to write down a list of all the characters I've played, and the reason is that we don't shoot everything in exact order, episodic order during the seasons, and then they'll throw me into different spots. Like, oh, we need somebody. Put Paul in there to do that and to do this, and I need to look back and see. I don't know if all the characters make it on screen too. You're shooting a big action. You don't know if that person's going to make it. But I played so much, and it's been so fun because of all the costumes you get to wear. And again, they're masked. Most of them are all masked. So that's why I can just jump in and out of these different characters, whether I'm background or the foreground or whatever it is. It's fun being a part of the whole process. So you get to see how the episodes or the films come alive, and same thing, the Mandalorian movie, Mando and Grogu, I was on that too, the whole run. And it's so fun because, I didn't have a large role on that, but my friends did. But I was also there as a, background. So that means instead of being like a role like Marrok in that, I was a supportive role where now I get to play different characters and be in multiple fights with them and kind of get beat up a bunch of times. And I like that. That's part of, why I got into this. I was inspired by all the stunt performers, and that's what I enjoyed doing. And now we'll get back. So now we're going into Mando season 3. We did all that, played the different characters in Mando. That was really fun in Mando season 3. And then they were looking to shoot Ahsoka, and they needed someone to fill the spot for this Marrok character that didn't have much lines, and it was more about a physical performer. And so people were coming with ideas of names to give to Dave Filoni. And so the stunt coordinator, JJ Dashnall, was like, hey, I think you would be great at this, Paul. I want to submit you. And also the costumer that I had worked with since Book of Boba Fett on, Shauna, who's now passed away, but she was a big help for me and a big supporter. And so she was texting Dave as well too and said, hey, Paul would be really great. We've used him before in all these outfits, and he could have the right build and look and everything that we need for this character. You should look at him. So with those people kind of, putting my name in, and I shot like a little video, I think, of some of my sword skills and sent it in. And then it was a week before I had another job. I was like, oh, do you want to use me on this job as Marrok, or I'm going to go over? I think they were asking me to work on Rebel Moon for Zack Snyder, another one of my favorite directors to work for. He's been amazing. And so I was like, oh, they need me over there. Am I going to get this role as Marrok, or should I go over here? And then the day before I needed to make a decision, they said, they chose you, Paul. We're going to use you as Marrok. I was like, okay, this is sick, because now you should actually play a character. And that was such an amazing thing, because you just get to develop this person. They're developing the character as well, and getting little bits of information of how they want him to come together, but also not knowing much about him too. That was a hard thing, is not knowing, but they were kind of, developing there and then making sure it fits and works with your body. And we came with this really cool helmet, and it came off in different pieces so you'd have vision. And I was really interested in trying to find out more, as I found out that this was kind of like, he was kind of like an inquisitor, but they weren't saying he was an inquisitor. So that was a whole journey too, just trying to figure out who this person was. Was he Star Killer? Was he going to be this? Like, who is there? All these things as well too. I was trying to figure it out, but that was a huge one for me, and I enjoyed that so much to be a part of that. And on Ahsoka too, once his part was done, I got to play other characters as well on Ahsoka, like different droids and gray suits, and just had different fights and different troopers and stuff like that as well.
That's really cool. What I've kind of taken from what you said, the initial kind of starting and going in to be fed for a stormtrooper, did somebody say to you, aren't you a little tall to be a stormtrooper? It's
Yeah,
basically
oh,
what
totally.
it is.
Totally. And so but I had to get up for my friend. The coordinator was Ryan Watson, and he was just like, "Hey, let's just see if it works. Let's see if they'll get it." But then they had tape on the wall, so they right away they're like, "We told him to bring in 5, 10 people. I'm 6'1", 6'2", 6'1.5". So yeah, I wasn't going to make that, but I was still, I went in there and I was trying to just like hunch over and just see if I could like slowly make it, but yeah, it didn't work.
But it's
But yeah,
great. Like
but I got it.
everything
Yeah.
else you got to do from that then is incredible. And it's really interesting that you say you're influenced by the stunt people that have come before. How did you yourself, you've got that influence, you're inspired from by those who are doing movement and stunt and performance. How do you get into that then? Where does your journey begin just in general for your career?
Yeah, I grew up in a smaller town in Virginia. It was more of like in like the country. There wasn't much. And I don't know, I played, traditional sports growing up. Just baseball was my huge, American baseball. And I liked that a lot. And I liked basketball. And then when I had reached, I think getting into a high school, so I'm about 14 years old, you're going through puberty, your body's changing and you're starting to get some muscles, or I don't know how much, but your body is growing, but you're trying to test it out. And I think, as everybody wants to know what they can do, as their body changes and see what you're capable of doing. And I was like, I was really into breakdancing, watching breakdancing videos and so amazed by what these people could do with their bodies. I thought gymnasts were amazing. How could they build their body so strong to do these flips and tricks and have this control? And so I would try to do all these stunt things in my backyard. It was terrible. Like, I'd grab a pillow and a mattress and just jump in. I had like 3 friends try to do like flips. No one could learn how to do a flip. But what we did start trying to do was like jump off of things. And I think this is what got me into parkour is naturally, again, testing your body was like, oh, could we jump off of this? Could I jump off of this? How about this high? And one of the things that I did as a kid is I had a group called Extreme Jumping. We were the XJ crew. And the initiation was to jump off of my parents' 13-foot roof to the ground. And if you didn't break anything, then you're in. And that was part of it. Like I saw it and I was like, I think I can do it. I stood on the roof and I looked down and I was like, I think I can make this jump and I'll be all right. And it was super high. I'd never jumped off of something that high before. And it's like the top of a basketball rim, sort of, a basketball backboard height or so. And I did the jump. I landed. I didn't break anything. I didn't have a good form. I just kind of hit the ground and like collapsed. But I didn't break anything. I was like, this is amazing. Okay, yes, we can do it. And so then I said to anybody that wanted to join, like, let's do this jump. You're in my crew. Every time someone does it, I'll do the jump with you. So I always did the jump again with them. And I had 3 guys. I had 3 guys. It was the crew that would go around and we started just jumping over things, jumping off of things, exploring that. And then I saw a TV show called Ripley's Believe It or Not, and they had featured some Yamakasi, which are a group in France. I was doing this, what I called was like Yamakasi. And I was like, oh, that's what we're kind of doing, but they have technique. They have like a form, they know how to land and roll. And then I started doing research and found out more about that. And during that time of this exploration phase of finding these people that do similar stuff, I came across Jackie Chan and his films. And Rumble in the Bronx was one that stood out to me. And it just showed, again, I guess just what you find out what you're attracted to. And watching him move and perform with obstacles and his creativity and just how unique it was to use ladders and I had some refrigerators and pinball machines. I was just like blown away by that. And that kind of just put me on a journey to see what was possible, like seeing it like, oh, that's possible. I would like to get there one day. And so that's what kind of got me inspired to do that. And Jackie Chan in that movie was like, oh, there's a career. Like people are actually doing this stuff, and like who is he fighting? Like maybe I could be one of the people that he fights. And again, not knowing anything about entertainment, I was never in theater or anything, just like physical movement, and that's what attracted me to stunts. So doing that, I realized that Virginia, I did not have anywhere to do this stuff. And so I at the time, it was either move to New York City or Los Angeles. And I don't like the cold. And so I was like, I'm going to LA. And so packed up my bags and drove to LA and just tried to figure out how to be a stunt man.
That's very cool. I love how you mentioned Rumble in the Bronx there. I actually only watched that recently, but it ends. The
Oh,
credits have the behind the
oh,
scenes, like them doing the stunt work. So I can imagine that kind of moment where you see that and you're like, oh,
oh yeah.
like it starts to kind of come together. But yeah,
Yeah,
Jackie
they pull the curtain
Chan's.
away a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to see, and it's great that you, as you say, that kind of interest that you took with your friends, just hanging out, having your crew, and then it just kind of snowballing from there. It's great, and you move out to LA then, and where do you kind of pick up when you get out there? You're just kind of walking around, being like, "I'll jump over anything. Give me a job."
Yeah, so it kind of worked. So I went to college, and during college, I joined they had like a club for gymnastics where you could just anybody could come in and use like the gymnastics equipment and train. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like they have mats and trampoline, and so I just went in there and just started learning tricks, learning skills, and then I kind of got into gymnastics and we started to compete in the competitions there. And that was really fun. We traveled to different schools and compete, but then I was taking all my skills that I could learn in the gym and see if I could apply them outside because I wanted to do tricks outside. So I would do that. And then I filmed myself trading little videos of what I could do. So after college, I had a little video of all the skills that I had. So when I moved to California, I was like, hey, check out this video. This is what I can do. I jump over things. I can do flips and tricks. And so I was just kind of trying to find out like, hey, where do some people train? They would say, "Oh, go to this gym." A lot of them go, "Okay, I go to the gym and just try to train there and meet them. Hey, check out what I can do." Or I got a job at a physical therapy studio, and luckily in that studio, I was working there for over a year. But they'd have different people coming in and from the industry, and I would talk to them about, oh, I'm out here. I just moved out here. I'm trying to be a stunt performer, and if they'd want to watch the video or not. And I finally met a stunt woman that she would come in and I talked to her about it, about doing stunts and stuff. And so she had my name in her mind. And then it just happened to work out a few months later that her friend was shooting a film that needed sort of like a parkour as zombie person, that a performer that can move like and do flips and tricks, but isn't like going to be a zombie. And so she's like, I think you'd be great at that. So she put my name in to her friend, and I met them. And part of it is being in the stunts or an actor, you have to be in the union. And so that's a big thing is trying to get your SAG card. And so I got to work on this, lower budget film called Evolution. And I was just an infected zombie. I think I got bit. And then I'm just, running around and to get hit by a car, have to do a flip off a car. It was a lot of fun. I really liked it. But that gave me my SAG cards, which would allow me to work on bigger budget films or SAG films. And so that's really what kind of got me in is just showing people my stuff, trying to meet people. And it just happened to click, just being in the right place at the right time.
And you say that you've worked with Zack Snyder and he's a great director.
Oh,
He,
yeah.
to me, he is a visual director that you could watch his movies with the sound off and still get the story. Is he very hands-on on how he wants your movement on screen?
Oh, that's a great question. He also is an athlete as well and respects movement. He's always working out. And I think he respects what you can do and he tries to put you in there and he will guide you as needed, but also he kind of lets you like do your thing of what it needs to be, as long as it's telling the story. I mean, he's so fun to work with. It's so fun. He's an incredible human being. He just makes everybody laugh. He's always telling jokes. It's a fun set to be on. And yes, he has a very artistic style and vision to it. So but yeah, he is very hands-on in that sense too. I mean, he's with the camera, he's all in there. Yeah, if you need some notes, but I mean, in a sense, like he still lets you explore your movement and what you need to do to create that, and he'll give you notes as needed. But yeah, just a wonderful human to work with and very creative in his style as well.
And working with those big directors, obviously working with Zack and someone like Edgar Wright, do you take that knowledge into something like Ahsoka to apply to Marrok, where it's like know where can you visualize in your head what it's going to look like on screen while you're doing it?
That's a really tricky one. This was a different one for me because most jobs I'd either never fully masked up in big suits. Like I did one of my earlier jobs. I worked on Race to Witch Mountain with Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and I was playing the Siphon character, which is this alien that comes to Earth, and he's just like chasing these kids. And I had a fight with him, and that one was my first suit work, and it was very challenging because it did have like a mask, and it had a restricted. It was a latex suit, so that I knew that that would restrict your movement, and so that was my first introduction to suit work. Through the years, I hadn't done much suit work, and then getting back into it with Marrok, I knew that I needed to be aware of the limitations of what the suit would allow and how big my movements would need to be. But that was more so from playing different characters like on Mandalorian, especially if you get into the Stormtrooper outfit. I eventually did get in a Stormtrooper outfit. I don't know how I fit or got into that, but I did. And your movements have to be bigger. You feel like you're doing it, like you're taking a reaction, but it just doesn't sell. Like you have the helmet on and the chest plate, so it doesn't work as much. I remember, I think it was Mando season 3, and I think the reason I got a Stormtrooper, I was a Super Trooper. They had these jetpacks on that I think Moff Gideon had modified, a version of Stormtroopers, and so me and a friend, they were a little bit taller, so me and my tall friends got to fit into those. And I had a fight with Lateef Crowder, who was stunt doubling Mando, and I just remember doing that fight and thinking I'm like hitting a wall and like really selling it and making it look good. And the coordinator would come up to me like, Paul, can you like make it bigger, like actually look like you're hitting the wall and you're like hurting, like it looks like something. I was like, I am. I'm like going for it. But what happens is like you're everything to sell in those things is hard because it's restricted. It's pinching each other and it's not allowing you to do that. So you really have to go even bigger or try to find a new way to sell the action that they're looking to get, and so yes, I did take all that knowledge into Marrok and try to figure out how I could really make it work. And what was really nice about him in this character was he didn't have any restrictions on his legs, so that allowed him to get into some stances that was nice and flowing as well, move for the footwork. But the upper body and the gauntlets that he had compared to Mando's usually stop about here, his go full down. So what that means is I can't bend my arm all the way in. Like with a Mando gauntlet, you can bend your arm in and do these blocks and cool fights and do this. With Marrok, I couldn't. I could only go to here. So before you're getting pinched, and that was interesting. So finding that out and trying to adapt the movement and still make it work with, because you can't. It's hard to grab things together, so you have to find a way to twist your upper body and to make it work. And I like that. That was a cool challenge to try to figure that out. It was hard, and I had so many bruises and different things from the chest plates, but I always got bruises from stuff. But again, I think that's part of why I enjoy it, is the challenge of how can you make it work, And I appreciate everybody that does that, because when you watch it, you might be, oh, why didn't he do this or do that? Or if I see it, I'm like, wow, it's amazing he could pull that off. Or he just walked backwards. I know he can't see anything, and he just did those backward steps, just something simple. I'm like, wow, like that's a good performer right there, So I appreciate all those little things because I know that it can be very hard to do in suit work.
I've costumed as a sand trooper before, and fair play to you
Uh-huh.
doing any sort of movement in those costumes. Because even like a lot of times as a sand trooper, I would just stand with like my rifle and maybe like
Yeah.
move people along with the hand, or even just doing like a subtle head nod, like the helmet is moving subtly, but your head is like this inside, But to be able to do that range of movement and take the hits, like you're saying, like fair play. Because even just walking around in a costume for an event or whatever, the amount of like pinches
Yeah.
and bruises come to like 5 hours or whatever you do at an event, like yeah, you're doing good work by actually like full on doing stunt work in those sorts of costumes because they're not easy worn. They're not easy worn at all.
They're not. And I don't know if everybody knows that unless you put it on. And if you have, then you do know the restrictions. Even sitting down and getting up is very hard. They're one of my hardest weeks as a stunt performer was working on Ahsoka. And it's towards the end of it where the stormtroopers were resurrected. They had these red thing. The Night Sisters had resurrected the stormtroopers, and we were chasing, Ahsoka and everyone up these stairs. And we had to run upstairs in these stormtrooper outfits. And I remember Lateef Crowder, he got to play one of them too and jump in. And we would just be running next to each other, and then all of a sudden, boom, he would just drop down. I'm like, what happened? You can't really see, but he would just misstep because also going upstairs, you can't. Your vision is so poor. Like if you don't step right, you just have to feel it, and you're just gonna crash. But we had to run upstairs for a whole week and then also get kicked and force blasted downstairs. A lot of it, unfortunately, didn't make the show, but it was 1 week of just like getting thrashed around in these by Ahsoka and Rosario. She was just that was a memorable week for everyone that was in that. And unfortunately, they didn't put a lot of it in, but we had some really fun times. But that was suit work again, very difficult to perform a lot of those actions falling down.
Yeah, no, fair play. That's one of the biggest fears for anyone who does like costumes at a convention or anything is a child comes running at you and you're just like, no, don't, because there will come a point where I can no longer see you,
See
and
him,
either
yeah,
you're going to push me over or I'm going to fall on you. So don't run at the costume people, but it's
totally.
your
I know
job to
people
get
just
ran at and get kicked.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's all about your spatial awareness, right? So you just have to hope that that person's there and having good performers with you so that you can count because I can't see you, but we're supposed to turn and meet together. So I hope you're there, and that's part of having a nice team together that understands the movement, and you can really create what you need to create.
Yeah, just really choreographed the whole thing. It's interesting you mentioned there how even those few backward steps that someone has to take impresses you, especially when it comes to doing suit work. And what a lot of people don't consider is how much that stunt performers actually do and what kind of everyday things we take for granted are sometimes done by stunt performers. And the film that kind of stood out to me on your IMDb was Ted 2. What stunt work did you do on Ted 2?
Head to, I think for that one, they have a big fight in a Star Trek convention. I think
Yeah.
that was in TED 2. Pretty sure that's what it was. And so I think what it was, they had a bunch of stunt performers and they're all dressed up as different characters. I think it's sort of like a Comic-Con sort of thing that they had there. And there's a fight that breaks out. And that was also a suit work job for me. I was this character that was supposed to be in one of the worst fights in Star Trek history, and it was some sort of lizard creature that I was. So that's what I was playing in that. There's sort of convention, and there's just kind of like doing this silly recreation of this worst fight
Yeah.
from Star Trek.
That's the thing with Ted 2. It's not a film I think people assume will have stunt work in it. But even that
Right.
there, like you performing that scene from Star Trek for the film Ted 2 at a convention, it's
Yeah.
still stunt work. You still have to put the
Yeah.
effort in to make it look the part whilst being safe and professional.
Yeah, it is interesting of what kind of goes into creating any sort of action in a film, or films that you might not think have that much action in them. Even like cars driving, but pedestrians. Those are mostly stunt performers that you'll have just on the street, so that when a car comes around, they know when they need to bail out. When it's dangerous, they know they can get out the way and trust these people that have been around cars and know what they can do to put them in just in those spots, that are just walking, but you need the right person there just in case something does go sideways and you know how to get out
Yeah, of course. I
as well.
assume films like Baby Driver and stuff, there was a lot of that kind of
Uh,
work involved there. Yeah.
yeah, I love that film too because that was a huge one. Working with Edgar Wright, I got to that one. Man, I got so lucky with that one. I got to meet him before shooting, and he's talked about his vision of what he's going to do and what he wanted to do with Baby. And I got brought in because of the parkour scene, and it was pretty much he wanted to be able to replicate what Baby could do with his car. And so once he's out of his car, he wanted them to have a similar style of movement through an environment. And so we talk about that and different movements that could be used and just jumps or no flips or tricks in that sense, but just kind of stylistic running. And it's all broken down into a song. He already had it laid out beat by beat for the song that he wanted to use. And so that was really cool. I get to listen to that song a bunch and kind of think if I could think of any style of movement that could work in those situations for that. But that was so fun. But that's one of my favorite stunts is in that film. Baby gets confronted, I think, by John Hamm in a police car in a parking garage. And the stunt was the car drives at him. He runs over the car and vaults it while it crashes into this elevator behind him or the wall behind him. And that one, it was interesting. I had to practice that stunt at my house because they were bringing me in and out. I wasn't on that for the whole run. It was just flying me in and out to Atlanta. And I wanted to make sure I could really do this. So I had my neighbor who had a car that he was just happened to be getting rid of. He's like, yeah, I'm going to have, what was he just going to have like someone come pick it up? It was done. It could barely run, but it ran just enough where I was like, hey, can you drive that car at me and let me run over it? He's like, okay. I was like, sweet. So he let me run on the hood. I dented his hood stuff, but I was able to practice that and see what speed I needed the car to go and how fast and high I could jump. But it was really fun to do that. But when I get to there on the shooting day, the car is in the parking garage and the ceiling is only, so high that before when I was practicing, I could run and just jump and fly over, vault over. But with the parking garage, you really had to go sideways to get through that. So that was a big challenge in that sense of how to get over that cop car in the parking garage with a limited amount of space and run up and all of those things. But that one was so fun to do because like again, going back to this childhood dream of running at a car coming at you. I was like, whenever I do a crosswalk, I'm like, yeah, is that car gonna stop? I hope it doesn't because I'm ready to just run over it. And I got to do it on a film. So that was a highlight for me. And Edgar, he was just, another amazing director. Again, I got very fortunate to work with him, fortunate to work with some amazing directors. And that was a fun project. And that you could tell he's very passionate about that project and wanted to make it the best that he could, as he put a lot of time and energy and throughout the years of kind of coming up with the script and coming up with how he wanted it to look. And yeah, it was just really fun.
Yeah, to have that kind of collaborative work with him to put that together to the music because he's such a dynamic director, his style and way of shooting stuff and putting it together is so kinetic. And to be able for you to kind of be able to like I got to work and put that stunt work together to the song like that must be really cool. Like just hearing about it is really cool.
Yeah, it was super cool in that sense. And what was even interesting to me is that he would have his editor, another guy named Paul, that was there. And as soon as they were filming it, they would put it into the computer and he would just start editing it so that Edgar could see how it would go. And I think that was probably, I had never really noticed that before. They probably have done that, in other projects I've been on, but just to be able to see it come together as we've just shot it. And he says, this is what it's going to look like. I think that was key too. Since it was timed to music, I think he needed something like that so you could have it live to see if this works. Oh, no, we need to do a little bit more pre-lead up to this or more running or something, to really get the vision that he wanted. So that was really cool because it is nice, like you said, being collaborative and just him welcoming ideas, and also he knew what he wanted as well. And that's really nice because sometimes if you don't know exactly what you want, you say, I don't know, try this, try that, try that. But he knew what he wanted and needed. So it kind of can say, no, I need you I want you to come from this way so we can get this shot here. And that's nice because then you know exactly what you're trying to achieve versus just, I don't know, I'll try this. Oh, you didn't like that one? Let me give you another one. Oh, you didn't like that one? Let me try this. So that can be go good and bad, that freedom, but it's nice knowing if you can do exactly what the person wants you to, or the director wants you to do.
So working on Mandalorian, we've had Brendan Wayne on the show,
Oh,
and
cool.
he's a fantastic human being, and anybody we've asked always says the same thing. He's just the captain of the ship on the show. He's just fantastic. How important is it for you as a fellow stunt performer to have a stunt performer like Brendan as like the top billing guy every day?
Yeah, Brendan's great because I mean he is more the actor, he embodies the character and he puts so much thought into Mando because he, does all the lines, he is there and he just brings this character to life, but also he makes it fun. And so he's always joking around and he's easy to approach. And so I feel like that helps you as a performer when you're in a scene with him or working with him, that the intimidation comes down. Some people are standoffish and you're like, I don't know, I can't ask them, should I do this? Is it okay if I, hit you here or, bump into you? And he is very, very collaborative as well, very open, very fun, and wants to have a good time with it. But also he knows what he wants to. He's played this character, for many years. He's got his walk down. He knows what Mando would do. He feels it. And it's always fun to get to work with Brendan. I mean, yeah, super chill, cool guy, and yeah, he's fun on set.
I'm working on the Book of Boba Fett. Obviously, you played a Night Wind Assassin, but were you jealous that you didn't get to ride any of the mopeds?
Oh, those more. Oh man. Yeah, no.
I can tell, Paul. I can tell you're jealous. You wanted to ride the blue one.
You know what? You know what I did do on that? That was really interesting. Is Tim Morrison was when he was with the Tusken Raiders, and I played a Tusken Raider on there. So I was a Tusken Raider, and he's trying to teach them how to ride. I think
Like a
one of those
benta?
bikes, Like a banta. Yeah, yeah. So I was there listening to him do all that. I was one of the guys, That talk about vision, those are so restricted because they are just like toilet paper rolls looking out. So you can't see down, can't see left or right or any of that stuff. And so the scene that they had me too is that Tim or Boba is trying to teach these guys, how to fight. And one of us jumping from one speeder bike to another speeder bike. And so they had, oh, Paul, let Paul do it. Let's see if he can jump from bike to bike. I can do parkour, but this is crazy. I can't see. So, but it was fun. And like, don't hit the actor either, don't run into Tim. So he's sitting on the speeder bike and I had to stand up on this one and jump and try to land a hit and then sit on it. So I got to do that a couple times. But again, that was really challenging because the speeder bikes are on track, like a dolly track is what they're on. So you don't want to miss and fall and hit that and bust your ankles or whatever. But that was a fun one too. Just speaking of bikes, doing a bike jump from one to the other and try to land on that again when you can't see. So what you do is you have this, you look at where you're going to land. And then you're like, okay, now I'm looking at him so I don't hit him. And I'm just trusting my body that I know how far I need to jump, that I'm going to feel it with my feet and just hopefully I hit it and then drop down and then we just go off. So that was a challenge getting through that. But yeah, I had to ride one of those bikes. I didn't mind that one.
That's pretty cool. How many times did you have to bike jump?
Oh, that's a great question. I forgot about takes. Yeah, I don't know. I forget, but there's a bunch. Usually you're doing like 10 plus.
Yeah.
Just getting this angle, or if I mess up, or just trying to change different things. It's usually a lot. That we shot on a back lot. It was hot. You're covered and you're wrapped up in these suits. You're sweating on the inside. So that was a lot to do too.
That's the other thing about doing costume work is that people don't appreciate. You get sweaty, like you get proper cooked in those outfits, and especially as you say, you're working in that sun, that heat as well. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, if you have a suit. Yeah, suit too with the Mando or stormtroopers. You got to be careful too if it's too hot or it's cold outside, you're hot, it fogs up. Now you have no vision because it's fog, so that's a whole other thing of trying to spray it and keep it clear.
Yeah, a lot of the guys. I don't have the stand trooper costume anymore. I just go for Jedi because you're basically wearing your jammies.
Oh yeah,
but, nice and cozy. Get a swing of lightsaber around, but
you get lightsaber. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, that's the best way to be. But the sand troopers and the stormtroopers, a lot of them will have like the anti-fog lens spray now in their kits. But the other thing you can use is washing up liquid like dish soap.
Oh really?
Bed dish soap on your lenses. Yeah, helps with the fogging. So.
Yeah, that's key to have because in the early mornings things would fog up, and that's so hard. Like I said, doing a jump or a run or just walking downstairs or having to jump off of stairs, you want to have your vision, and that was always a thing of trying to figure out how we could keep our visors from fogging up. We tried some of the anti-fog stuff; it didn't last as long. But I'll have to try that dish soap.
Try some dish soap and see how you get on with that.
Or hot honey. Maybe I'll put some hot honey.
Some hot honey, and then you can have a wee taste.
Hey, we don't know.
Just during the tag.
Hot honey's everywhere. Maybe that'll work.
You mentioned that one of your favorite stunts was the car vault from Baby Driver. But what would you say has been your hardest stunt?
I've done a lot of stunts in the past, a lot of wire work and jumps. My most fun is parkour. I don't know if I have like a top hard one because I think the hardest ones would be more of a simple one where it's like my vision. Like one that was hard that sticks out, comes to me where I actually got hurt is, it was like a show, I don't know if it's NCIS or a show where I was doubling an actor. And for this scene, he is trying to break into a bank and he cuts a circle around him, like on the top of the bank floor, and then he stands on the circle and it drops into the room. And so that one was tricky because you have a circle and you have to fall through it, like kind of tight, and then try to land on this sort of block. And they do have the wires and it's set up. But what was hard is that whenever I'm doing parkour, I'm trying to look down and bend my head forward, but can't. So it was that one was just a weird one. We did it 6 times, but on the last time, when I landed, fell to the floor, pretty much what they said was it wasn't going fast enough. So they're like, hey, you know what? Oh, I think we're just going to take this. I know we have the wires, but we're just going to just free fall, let it drop. And I was like, all right, yeah, I think we can do this. But what was tricky is that I couldn't get in a good stance to land properly because the hole was tight. So it's like if you drop down and you got to try to open up. So we did that. And on the 6th one, when I dropped in and landed, my ankle just hit and went, just rolled over. And I was like, oh. but I remember that one was tricky in a sense that it was just the weird parameters of the size of the hole, what I was on. I was also hooked to the floor piece, like the round piece that was cut out. It was like attached to me. So that was interesting for that. That was one injury. And then you guys mentioned Twilight. Twilight was tricky because I got thrown. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The hardest one is actually from Twilight, but it's not. It's hard because I was sitting in a harness for probably 8 to 10 hours, and that was one of the most painful things I've done in my life. So in this movie, Robert Pattinson is playing baseball, and then he can just run with super speed through these woods. So they set up this long traveling line, and what they usually use for cameras, like filming football games or high speed cameras that can just go fast and watch action from above. Well, they brought it to the ground level, and then they said, okay, we can hook Paul into it, and pretty much it's on two lines, and it's you're hooked in the middle, and there's tension on it, pulling back and forth, so it kind of squeezes you. So you're getting compressed from the sides in your harness. And then to make it look like you can go fast, they lift you off the ground. So all your weight now is like on your leg straps, like your straps in your legs. So you're just hanging in your weight. And then they would just zoom me across, and just I'd be tiptoeing on the ground trying to do my vampire fast run. And it was super fun. Oh, this is so fun. This is great. I love this. Keep doing it. And then and also you're moving your legs. So now you're rubbing the straps like this. And then after like first hour, I was like, guys, how much more of this are we doing? It was a full day of doing that. And that was so weird that was actually my hardest stunt. I had to like mentally get into it, be like, okay, I think I could do one more. And then I try to like stand on some sort of apple box to relieve some pressure. And then, okay, we're going again, and like cinch the straps down. Because if you don't have them tight, you it's called tenting, and your harness like lifts up like this. So you're running and everything's there, and they can't use that because now your harness is tenting up. So you have to make your harness cinch down and really tight. That was actually, now you bring it up, that was the hardest stunt for me, just to be in those lines and running through the woods all
Yeah.
day. Weird,
And
right? That's like my hardest ones.
with that, because I'd imagine, as you say, you're slightly off the ground, you're
You're
kind of
slightly off the ground, just a little
strapped
bit.
in, and as you're running, your momentum's going to be pushing you forward. Did you ever like, was there a counterbalance or something to stop you just going like boop and just like falling on your face?
They didn't. No, it was set up in a way that that's a good thought. Where I think you could always put your hands on the lines in front of you, versus falling forward. Because so the lines would be like right here. My arms are on the outside of the lines, so running. And then if you stop, you could grab
Grab them. Oh,
the
okay.
line.
Because
Yeah,
I just imagined like at some point you would just like lose your balance and go boop,
yeah.
or just start
Well, they did
spinning.
also. Oh, totally. Yeah, they do that a lot in wire work, and they had on that show too. They had a magic carpet, is pretty much where they would just drag this clear piece of plastic on the ground and try to film above it and have you just like walk on it. And they're trying to show vampires like walking fast on that, but that one was sketchy because we could started dragging that kind of quick, and if you do a misstep and fall, you're gonna roll off of that carpet.
And what was the wire work like for Superman? Because I'd imagine getting to be Superman and do Superman wire work is pretty exciting.
They did. They had. So it was exciting, but also a lot of it was a computer takeover. So a lot you just had to like Henry did everything, and a lot of it is just doing that, and then computer takeover to go that fast. We did have some wire work, and I got to test out all the wire work, and there was a cool one that they use a system like of winches where it's programmed in, so it's the same movement every time, which is great. I really like that. I really like winches because then you get to really feel what it's like and then perform. So you know that you're going to be pulled and hit this mark each time, and it's great when there's a lot of different movements that you need to do, like a lot of different directions you're going. So in this point, Superman kind of like I think he's dodging, so he's zooming backwards, left, and then right. But by doing that, I was on a winch, and you got to know when you're going to hit and stop, so you could use your arms or act and perform. But there wasn't as much wire work really. We did have a lot, and it was some flying and a lot of core strength. There was belly pans that you would lay like prone, and then you would have to act like you're flying and do this whole thing. And that's so hard on your neck. You just rest here and then lift up and go, and your whole back. That was a challenge to try to do those flying on this sort of belly pan. There's, you know what? There was way more wire work, I feel like, in Twilight than we actually did on Man of Steel. I mean, we had the winches and we did some for different characters and different scenes because we tried some stuff. I guess we did most of the wire work. It was like on green screen as reference, and so it would be like Zod and Superman fighting, and a lot of it was just two people hitting and going back or lifting up. But again, a lot of it was just CG takeover. So Zach would be like, "Yeah, we'll just just do the movement or do the landing because it's all digital until that moment." Because the speed of Superman is so much sort of bigger than you can do as a human or what you need to take. So they wanted to try to keep that without wrecking a human and just do that in CG.
Paul, whenever I brought up that you were coming on the show, all of the ladies in the office I work in wanted to know, two-part question. What's Robert Pattinson like? Second part, what does Robert Pattinson smell like?
Oh, great. Always smells. Yeah, smell. Huh. I don't never heard of that one. Robert's awesome. He's really funny, chill, and I had a lot of fun on Twilight working with him. We did it was the first one. We didn't know much about what it was, and so just to be there and hanging out with him and learning this, figuring out what this whole movie was about was really fun, and I really enjoyed that. I just got to reconnect with him because he went off and did other movies and worked with different people, and then I just got to reconnect with him. One on the Odyssey, I got to see him on the Odyssey. They brought me in to double him, but he did everything there, and it was really fun to see him. And then after that, we did a movie that comes out on Netflix called Here Comes the Flood, which will be coming out. It's a bank robbing or bank heist movie, and I got to see him again and work more with him on that. I spent a couple of weeks out in New Jersey working with him just at the end of last year, and I always enjoy it because he has a sensibility about him that he thinks about his character, so he knows what he wants to perform. But I don't know, Rob is pretty chill and just like he's always laughing. He's always just having a fun time, and that's nice to know. Like he can lock it in too. So what's cool about him is that he can talk to you and just be like, yeah, yes, yeah, that's great. How was your day? The week, blah blah blah. Oh, you're up. Boom. And then he can just lock into his character that he wants to be and go do that. And that's really cool to see because also you want to respect people that I mean, you need to stay in that mindset. It's and you're this character, so you need to be in that. But he's able to switch back and forth, and that's always impressive. Smell like roses.
Yeah, yeah.
We could only assume, but we just had to confirm, being that you've been with the man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pure,
yeah.
sweet, fresh roses picked on a spring's day, just wafting around. Yeah, yeah, he's lovely, lovely.
Just kind of going back to from Robert Pattinson's smell to Star Wars again, how does it feel to see a character that you helped to bring to life on the screen with Marrok now appearing alongside Darth Maul in Maul Shadow Lord? You said you sort of
Oh,
looked up to Ray Park bringing Maul to life on the big screen. You got to bring Marrok to life, and now those characters they're coming face to face in Maul Shadow Lord. Is that exciting for you? You kind of got to, you said working in Star Wars helped you delve more into Star Wars. Have you been watching the animated shows? Have you watched all the other shows? And how excited are you for Maul Shadow Lord?
yeah, so you're right. The anime shows I never got into before until we did Ahsoka, and I was trying to figure out more about these characters and what Ahsoka was all about. And so then I watched all of Clone Wars, and then I watched all the Rebels, and went through that. And that was a lot. We trying to like spam it and get through all of them. And so yeah, I really got into it, and then and started to see who these characters were and are, and then Marrok, he was such a mystery to me because again, like Dave didn't give me much information about who he was. He was like, he's a weathered warrior. He's been through some stuff, and he's more like a mangy dog. This is how you should portray him. He should be a little off kiltered. He's weathered, been through a lot, but he didn't really tell me much more than that of where he came from. So I too am trying to figure out more about this guy. Why was he green gas? What was his background? Was he a human before? Was he just resurrected? Was he Inquisitor? Where did he come from? Also, and so how did he join that group with Balin and Shin? Curious about all of that. But now, because I always thought he had a really cool presence about him, and to see that he is now kind of going to go toe to toe with Maul, I'm like, oh. so this guy does have some weight to him. Like he is somebody, like they're going to be battling Maul. That's a huge one for me because, yeah, like you said, like I was very into Darth Maul and seeing that. And now to see this sort of character come together, I'm like, oh, this is trippy. This is so crazy how these worlds do come together. How did I get to be a part of this universe? And a fan. Now I want to know more about it. I want to know more. Excited to find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting because as of recording, we haven't got to see him yet in Maul Shadow Lord. So it's going to be interesting, I suppose, for you because you'll be watching it and you'll be like watching how they animate him and how it
Yeah.
compares to your movements, what you brought to that character. And, will you be drawing those kind of parallels where you'll be like, oh, he did that move and that's maybe not something I would have considered for that character? Or, hey, that's something I did. He's doing a thing I did, you know?
Well, I think it'll be both of those. I think for me too, we'll hopefully understand more of how they envision him. Like if Dave has created this character, this would be a take on his sort of notes or of how they want him to be portrayed, and see if there are similarities between the two. Be like, okay, did they take some of my stuff and incorporate it there, or how do we expand upon this and be like, this is how he moves now? Oh, this is interesting. Okay, it would definitely be a learning experience for me to see how they put this character in, how all those movements in together. Because it's different animation. You can go so big and everything. The Inquisitors were flying, with their lightsabers spinning around and stuff that you can make. It's so different to make it in live action. So I think you can go above. I mean, I've become a huge fan of anime. It's hard to also do a live action adaptation, I think, of anime because you find these movements and styles, these characters that do it, and then try to have a human do it. Kind of like we talked about Superman. It's hard. It's hard to get that same physics and looking like you can in animation. But that's why I love the animation style because you can go so big and above the top. But yes, I would like to see how he moves, and I will be curious to see if there's some sort of correlations between the two of bringing that sort of a style of this sort of, like we said, like sort of a weathered sort of warrior into it.
Well, he's going to have to survive season one because he's got to make it to Ahsoka. So they've already announced that season two's coming. So are you not on the phone being like, you need somebody for movement references, eh?
Yeah, I should. I think I'll watch it and see how they do, and just give them props for sure. But hey, if they need a
Here's my
backup,
notes.
hey, I'm right here. Yep, here's my notes. Yeah, here's how we can make them even better. Season
Hmm.
two, guys, I got you. Yeah.
We've seen Sam Witwer with the paint on his face like Maul. You could come in, paint your face like Mercs.
The helmet, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Paul, just before we go, I'd be amiss as a cinephile myself. I'd be amiss to ask you what it's like working with Sir Christopher Nolan. You worked on Tenet and you worked on The Odyssey. What is it like working on a set with Mr. Nolan?
Yes, that was my first time was on Tenet, and I didn't get to interact with him that much. We were out in the desert, and he was mainly like in a helicopter, and I was with the stunt coordinator George Cottle, and he was kind of directing us around, and didn't really get to see Christopher, but he was there because a lot of the shots were very wide, and it was also that was an interesting experience because I'm like, where are the cameras and stuff? And we are just kind of doing our action. You had to do forward movement and then backward movement, and that one was really interesting, but I didn't get much of a full feel of his style until on the Odyssey. And then I was fully immersed and we were on a set, and just seeing how he works and how he commands the set was completely different than on any other set I'd ever been on. Everybody respects him. He knows what he wants. It's pretty quiet, no one's like yelling and all this. The other thing is that nobody leaves set. All the actors are there, Robert was there, Matt Damon was there, just chilling. Everybody's, on set. It was really cool to see everybody there. Like we talk about collaborative process, but also he knows what he wants, and so you're just there to help him give him his vision. But he gets it pretty quick because nobody's leaving. Nobody is, going off and going to like Crafty or your trailer and just hanging out. Like we're all there on set and we're seeing everybody's performance from this side of filming this way, and you're all doing your action here, then you're filming this way and people are still doing the action behind camera. So usually people would go off and go do something else, and then come back when they're on camera, but everybody stays on set. And so that was really interesting to me. But what I noticed about that is that now everybody knows what you did over there, so I know how to react to what you did versus being told. I don't know, so I feel like it was really cool. I learned so much. I learned so much to see how he runs his ship and and operates just in the short time that I was there. Really cool of how he gets what he wants. And again, someone that has a vision and knows what they want. And so he has the shots, it seems like planned, and just kind of gets this and then he got it. Boom, okay. And turning around, boom, let's get these shots. I'm like, wow, he's moving fast and making his days. And again, that's really a wonderful experience to see a master at their craft and doing what they do. And so, but they're so good at it. And you're just kind of in awe, like, wow, this is how they do it. This is amazing. This is just flowing, you know? It's really cool.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Paul. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Let me just chat and talk and ramble on. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we'll see you again in a Star Wars project, but of course, we'll see you in the Odyssey later this year. And I'll also have a little word in Robert Pattinson's ear and see if he can get you some work on the new Batman movie. Because if you get to play Superman and Batman, that's
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, I know. Rob needed to bring me to Batman. I would love to work with him again on that. Yeah. Hey, Rob, come on.
just send him a quick text. Just go, Rob, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bat signal, maybe.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's been a great chat. Danny, thank you as always for joining me on this delightful podcast.
But of course,
You can find us on the socials, your Instagrams, your Facebooks, your TikToks, Blue Sky, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. But you can join us next week for more fun and shenanigans in the stars. And as always, we have friends everywhere. Goodbye, everybody.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Parkour!